Morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. And a special shout out to Unity of Rockford in Illinois, who actually watches our Sunday service as their Sunday service. So love you guys. Thanks for all your support. All right. So, do you know why you're here? Do you know why you were born? Do you know what you are here to do? Do you know what your purpose is? I believe in a line. The answer is that you are here to make manifest the glory of God. You were born to bring more light and love into this world. You were born to bring more joy and beauty into this world. You were born to bring more wisdom and understanding into this world. You were born to bring more kindness and compassion into this world. How many people would say that those statements seem to resonate as the reason that we are all here? And my question for you is, how many people think that you have not fully allowed yourself to express your greatness, your magnificence, and your truth and the reason that you are here? How many people have ever? And the question is why? What holds us back? What is it that stops us or prevents us from expressing the fullness, the greatness, and the fullness of the life and the fullness of the individual that we have come here to be? And I would suggest it is that often in life, and when we look at it, we perceive, we see what's going on in life, and it is not exactly the truth of what's really going on. Sometimes we have these illusions, an idea of what's happening, the appearance, and it is far from actually the truth of what's happening. Kind of reminds me of this little boy who goes to this barber shop, goes into the barber shop, and the barber whispers to a customer, "This kid is the dumbest kid in the world. And watch, and I'll prove it to you." So the barber puts $1 in one hand, and he puts 2 quarters in another hand. He calls the kid over, and he said, "Which one do you want, son?" And the little boy takes the 2 quarters and leaves. And then the barber says, "See what I told you? He never learns. He always just takes the 2 quarters. And so the customer later leaves, and then as he's leaving and is walking down the street, he sees a little boy coming out of the ice cream store licking this ice cream cone. And he goes to the little boy and he says, "Hey, son, can I ask you a question? Why did you choose the quarters over the $1? And the kid licks his ice cream and smiles. He says, "Because the day I choose the $1, the game is over." See? So sometimes we can be like the barber thinking this is how life works. And when it's actually the opposite. That life often works, the spiritual laws of how life operates are often different than what we perceive or imagine or have been conditioned to think and believe. And that's what holds us back. We often sabotage our own greatness and magnificence because we're not fully aligned with the truth of how life really works. You know, I really believe that many of us believe that it's the challenges and difficulties in life that stop us, that block us and prevent us from succeeding. And I would say what we think is the problem is not the problem. It is how we perceive and relate to the problem. That's the problem. Sometimes we want our problems to go away. We want the challenges to go away and the conflict to go away. We want to pray them away. But the truth is life is calling us to be more masterful in how we relate to those situations. Not to pray them away, but to move into them in a more masterful way. Somebody once said, "The cave you are afraid to enter holds the treasure that you seek." Life is calling every one of us to rise to a higher level than the things we think prevent us from a happy life and to relate to those in a more masterful way. Our lives can be infinitely better. We can express greater things if we would stop saying, "I just want this, I want that," and raise our intention to having, and our goal and our desire to live a more awakened life, to live a more conscious life, to live a more spiritual life, to live a more intentional life, and to live a more masterful life. In the last several weeks, we've been looking at how we can develop a more masterful relationship with fear, how we can develop a more masterful relationship with conflict, more masterful with problems, and more masterful with judgment. Today we're going to look at how can we develop a more masterful relationship with uncertainty and how we can develop a more masterful relationship with desire. So let's look at uncertainty. Nobody really likes uncertainty. We're all kind of uncomfortable because we human beings want to know what's going to happen. We want to be certain of what's going to happen and not going to happen. And when we don't know, it freaks us out. We feel vulnerable because most of us are control freaks. We want to know everything that's going on, when it's going to go, what's not going to go. And we're so uncomfortable with uncertainty that instead of just being at peace with uncertainty, we think we need to make stuff up to make ourselves feel more certain and feel better. Here's a quote by the Swedish psychiatrist R.D. Laing. He says, "There is something I'm supposed to know that I do not know. And I don't know what it is that I do not know, yet I'm supposed to know. And I feel stupid that I seem both not to know it and not know what it is I don't know. Therefore, I pretend to know it. This is nerve-wracking since I don't know what I am supposed to pretend to know. Therefore, I pretend to know everything." See, in life, we think uncertainty is bad. We think uncertainty is wrong. We think uncertainty represents weakness. And we think someone who is certain is strong. That certainty is powerful. Certainty is stable. You know, certainty is strength. And uncertainty freaks us out. It scares us to be uncertain about what is going to happen. We try to avoid uncertainty at every single cost. But the truth is, you know what uncertainty is? It is the field of infinite possibilities. It is a place of unlimited potential. It is a place of faith. It is a place of joy. It is a place of abundance. It is a place of possibilities and curiosity. See, if you were to look at the totality of what could be known, and you put like a pie chart, there would be a pie that would be of the things that we know that we know. There are things that we know that we know. And then there are things that we know we don't know, like microbiology or calculus or whatever it is. We know that we don't know. But the largest portion of the pie are the things that we don't know that we don't know. Does that make sense, everybody? I hope it does, because that's all I've got. That's all I've got. So, and the thing about the place of not knowing what we don't know, that is a place where ideas and inspiration and wisdom and new possibilities, new ways of seeing, new ways of being, new inventions, new creativity, new inspiration comes from. Einstein once said this. He said, imagination is more powerful than knowledge. Do you know why? Because knowledge represents what is. And there is a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of knowledge. But imagination represents everything that could be. And that is infinite. It is unlimited. Certainty is a good thing, but certainty can also be very limiting and restricting, where uncertainty can open a space for God's grace, for serendipity, for creativity, for curiosity. Leonardo da Vinci was considered the greatest genius of all time. And you know what the one quality and trait about him was that separated him? He had a curious and open mind. He knew there were things he didn't know. And he didn't know what he didn't know, and yet he was open to possibilities. He was open to asking what if. He was open to asking what else. He was open to asking why not? What more? See, I truly believe that our relationship with uncertainty, instead of being scared and freaked out and think it's bad, be open and relaxed and trusting that life is filled with possibilities. And to open yourself with a curious mind and just relax and create a space for God's grace. Create a space for new inspiration and ideas and possibilities and serendipity. How many people went to Craig's opera last weekend? A number of people. So Craig is a guy who's just got a curious and open mind. I just love that about him. And 5 years ago, Craig, and so he just did this opera. It was the best-selling opera at the Arizona Opera in the last 12 years. It was the first Western opera ever. I mean, phenomenal. So here's how it started. 5 years ago, he and Rusty wanted to go hiking up in Payson. So they're up in Payson, they're hiking, and then a huge amount of rain started falling, so they had to take a bit of a hideout, and they ended up going into the Zane Grey Museum in Payson. So he looked around the Zane Grey Museum, and he thought it was kind of cool, and he was kind of intrigued. And when he went home a few weeks later, he thought, well, let me just read a Zane Grey book. So he felt guided to pick up the book, Riders of the Purple Sage. Into about the 20th or 30th page, he thought to himself, this sings. And he ended up over the next 5 years writing an opera. And the reason is, it rained on a day that they planned to hike. It forced him to go to a museum he had no plan on going to. He was inspired by Zane Grey, read the book, and through that, can you see the serendipity in there and the uncertainty? And instead of getting upset that it rained or anything like that, he just flowed with it and just enjoyed and was present to the experience, and some great idea, a great idea that blessed Arizona Opera, blessed, Phoenix, the arts community, came about because of this. You remember Joseph when he was thrown into the pit by his brothers, sold into slavery? He was also then, after he got out and served in Potiphar's house, he was thrown in jail because of the accusations of his wife. All these things didn't go well with him, but from that he ended up becoming the governor of Egypt and healing things with his family. And his line of uncertainty to keep himself open was, God meant this for good. See, the uncertainty in our lives doesn't have to scare us. Life is pregnant with possibilities. It is God's desire to bless us. The question is, are you willing to have a mindset that's curious, that's open, and affirming of the idea that God means this for good? So where in your life are you feeling some uncertainty right now? And what is your relationship with uncertainty? And are you willing to change it and transform it instead of being scared and anxious about it, to actually be joyful and relaxed, to be curious, to be willing, to be open, and to know God means it for good? That your life is pregnant with possibilities and good things if you just create a space for God's grace and serendipity, that great things will fall into place and be attracted through you. William Shakespeare, his father was a butcher, and his father wanted him to be a butcher. And so at 22, he was married and had 2 kids, and he was a butcher. At 22, William Shakespeare never wrote a word. He died at 57, and in those 35 years, gave the gift to the world of some of the greatest literature ever written. So why didn't he just stay a butcher? It seemed his life was set up to be a butcher. And you know what the reason was? He had a desire to write. He had a desire deep in his soul. He knew what he was here to do. Desire is a powerful force. Desire is the thing that initiates the calling forth of unseen possibilities. It initiates and activates greater things to come forth into our lives. The key thing is, how do we use our desire? Because sometimes we use our desire in a way that actually repels the thing we desire. We use our desire in a way that sometimes creates more wanting and the idea of what we desire being more absent than being present. So here's how we transform our relationship with desire. The number one is to get clear on what is it that you desire? What is your heart's desire? What is it that you feel called to experience, to become, to attract, to create? One of the interesting things is, one of the main reasons that people don't succeed in their life is because they have no idea what they want. Anybody ever had a time where you didn't know what you wanted? Okay. And it's important for us to ask ourselves, when it says, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, knock and door, all of them, the underlying thing is asking, what do I desire? What is the desire underneath? And to take time to give contemplation, to get clear on what is it that I desire. And if you don't know, ask God. Say, Spirit, what is my desire? I love that the line in Psalms. It says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. I believe the desires of our heart, the purpose that we're here, are already in us. It says we just need to be still and listen and say, Spirit, what am I here to do? How am I supposed to make manifest your glory in this life? What is the difference I'm here to make? Who is the person I've come here to be? What is my deepest soul's desire? Because if you ask, it will come forth. It's a powerful and important thing that everyone take time to get clear on what is it that you desire, because that's what initiates and activates greater good in our lives. And then the second step is that we need to develop a consciousness of the thing we desire. See, desire activates and initiates, but consciousness is what calls forth and manifests. And it's important for us to develop the consciousness of the thing that we seek and desire. They say that the reason that people who win the lottery lose all that money within a year is because they don't have the consciousness of wealth and abundance. The consciousness how to be responsible and manage that type of money. You must become it first in consciousness, whatever you desire. So here's the most powerful consciousness line, I think, in the Bible. It's from the parable of the talents. It says this, to he who has, more will be given. And to he who has not, even that which they have will be taken away. Doesn't that sound like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Sounds kind of unfair. To he who has, more will be given, and to he who has not, even that which they have will be taken away. But this statement is speaking the law of consciousness. To he who has a consciousness of having will have more. To he who has a consciousness of not having, even that which they have will be taken away. See, we can have a desire for something greater, but have the consciousness of not having it. Let me give you an example. Sometimes we could say, I have a desire for more money, yet we have the consciousness of saying, I'm always broke. I don't have enough money. I always need money. I'm not good at saving money. Money just slips through my fingers. You know, I mean, are you hearing that? We could have that desire, but the consciousness is of more lack, of what I don't have. Sometimes we can say, I desire love and a loving relationship, and yet we always say, there's no love in my life. Love is missing. Nobody loves me. I always have a hard time in relationships, you know. I always pick men that are emotionally unavailable to me. I always pick women that are crazy, or I always pick whatever. I always get hurt in a relationship. We say all these different crazy things in relationship, and yet we say we have a desire for one, yet the consciousness behind it is of lack. Ever had a time in your life where your desire turned into desperation or neediness? Or when is it going to come? Why isn't it happening now? Can you see when desire is sometimes attached to a consciousness of not having? Sometimes, you know, we feel we need to beg. You know, we feel we need to demand it. And we wonder, why isn't it happening? And it's because the consciousness underneath the desire is of not having. And so we need, to he who has, more will be given. To he who has not, even that which they have will be taken away. And many of us have a consciousness of not having. So when we put the desire with it, it tends to actually repel the very thing we want. Jesus gives a phenomenal example of how to create a consciousness of having to support our desire. And it is in the story of the loaves and fishes. So he's about to talk, 4,000 people, they're hungry. There are only a couple of loaves, a couple of fish. And so in that moment of lack, in that moment where it seems like it could be a panic and a challenging situation, he stayed calm and confident because he had a consciousness of having. He knew he had a desire for a solution, a desire for more abundance, and even in the condition of lack, he had a consciousness of having. Having a desire and having the faith that it could come forth and Spirit would provide it. It is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. He knew that God doesn't withhold. He had the faith to just stay calm and confident in a situation of lack, knowing that his desire for something better, a solution, would come forth and manifest itself. You know when it says in Scripture, do not judge by appearances, but judge by righteous judgment? In the appearance, it looked like lack, but his higher consciousness knew that he could call forth that abundance, that his desire would be fulfilled, that it would be supplied. So that's the first thing, is to develop a consciousness of having, that in any situation, just stay calm, confident, and know your desire can be fulfilled, that it is fully available, that your desire creates a demand and there is a supply for it, and even more. And the second thing, Jesus did was great, is that he recognized and acknowledged and gave thanks for the good he already had. See, we always want to desire more, but how much are you enjoying what's going on now? Easily, with those loaves of bread, he could have just complained. He said, there are 4,000 people, there are 2 loaves of bread. That's not enough. That's not good. That's horrible. Sometimes we diminish what's there. We diminish the things that we don't like. Or he could have hoarded it. He said, let's save this thing. There are only 2. Let's save it for us, or whatever he might have said. But he didn't. You know what he did? He recognized and gave thanks that it's good in his life right now. And he used it, he celebrated it, he rejoiced in it, he gave thanks for it. So I ask you, in an area of your life where you're desiring something greater, how much are you enjoying and acknowledging and celebrating and giving thanks for what you have now? Because he was acknowledging the abundance. He was acknowledging the blessing and the good. And when you recognize and celebrate it, it will bring more into your life. How do we develop a consciousness of having? The first one is to stay calm and know that your desire will be fulfilled, that it will be called forth. Secondly, recognize and celebrate and enjoy the good that's right there, the love, your job, your finances. Appreciate it, enjoy it. Don't diminish it by thinking it's not enough. Celebrate it and rejoice and give thanks for it. And then the third one is to believe that you've received your desire already and create that feeling. Jesus said, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. And so it's hard for us sometimes to believe that we've received something we don't have. But that is a powerful spiritual practice because it means becoming at one with it in consciousness. Knowing that whatever that desire is, create the feeling that you have it already. So everybody think of something that you want, that you desire, and can you create the feeling to believe that you've already received it? What would that feel like if you had already received it? How joyful, how exciting, how happy, how fulfilled would you feel? Because how we feel tends to attract more of the same type of feeling. But believing that we're receiving is hard because sometimes people have a hard time receiving. Everybody says we always want to win the lottery and get lots of money and have a great life and that we want to receive all that into our lives. And yet somebody gives us a compliment and we can't even receive that. They give us a gift. Oh, no, you really shouldn't have. All the lifted weight. We have a hard time receiving in the little ways. So we need to become better receivers and to believe that we have received all the good. Rick Prigmore wrote a book called The Joy of Living, and he and his wife decided to get rid of everything they had, get a motor home, and travel the country. And they were really pretty well off, and so instead of selling all the stuff, they decided to give all the stuff away to their friends. So they had a farewell potluck at their house, and for each of the guests, they gave them some labels and said to them, after dinner, just walk around the house and put a label on anything you want, and it's yours. It's our gift. We want to give this to you. We want to have you be blessed by it the way we were blessed, and we're going on our motorhome. And he said what was consistent was the theme was people had a hard time receiving. He said that some of the people would say, hey, that print of the Van Gogh or whatever, that was expensive. I love that, but I'll take this vase. Or, hey, I love that tea card. It's so good, but I'll take this knick-knack. And he had to actually convince, he and his wife, to convince them, no, take it, no, take it. And some people, if they did, they'd use an excuse like, oh, I'll take it, but I'll just hold it for you till you'll get back. And so the theme was, we as human beings have a hard time receiving. Even when it's being freely and joyously given to us, we have a hard time receiving so much abundance or so much love or so much success or so much greatness. We have a hard time and we tend to push it away and feel comfortable settling for less. Does this make sense, everyone? So how can you expand your ability to be a good receiver? When someone compliments you, say thank you. I appreciate that. Welcome and open and know that the more good that flows through you, don't think it's selfish or greedy. The more good that flows through you, the more good flows through the world. You have a right and a responsibility to allow the glory of God to be expressed through you, which means you need to learn to be a good receiver. Allow yourself to be more successful. Allow yourself to welcome it all in because it's a part of your spiritual job and your spiritual work. Can you believe that you've received it and feel successful, feel fulfilled, feel that you have become all that you want to be? And as a part of receiving, in terms of a consciousness of having, we also need to learn the other side of how to be a giver. Because giving and receiving are both part of the law of circulation and a consciousness of having. And many of us are good at giving of our time and talent, but we get a little freaked out when it's giving of our treasure. Giving of our money freaks us out and scares us. But the thing is, withholding of our good, of our abundance, and not being a tither or not being a giver actually tells the universe, sends out the consciousness of I don't have, I don't trust, I don't believe there's enough. And one of the things that Roger Teal says, he says, not only do you need to support and acknowledge that principle of given you will receive and keep that flow going, but you need to set up a systematic approach. So it isn't a matter of giving once or occasionally. We need to give systematically and consistently. Like we eat daily and consistently. We sleep daily. All these things work better when it's done consistently. Prayer works more effectively when it's done consistently. Love is done well when it's more consistent. Everything in life needs a systematic, consistent approach, including giving. And he says, that we need all to make a commitment to systematically giving to God the first fruits of our financial abundance. Secondly, is to pick a percentage of it and to do it, whether it's 2%. Now, 10% is tithing, but only 5% of the entire country actually tithes. And if it freaks you out, start a percentage that works for you, and maybe that's 2%. Do you know people who give actually report that they are healthier, that they're happier, they're more free, they're more joyful, and 0% of people who tithe think it's a burden. They actually think it's a blessing, and they feel a greater connection to God. So the first is to make a commitment to systematic giving, pick a percentage, 2%, whatever it is, and every single week, how much comes in, give that to God first. Third, give it to where you are spiritually fed. Fourth is if you get any bonus stuff, think first thing, the first part I give. And then the fifth part is work your way up to 10% over time. So the systematic giving flows. As John was saying, all these things, he's got a new job, things are flowing in his life. And then finally, look for ways to be a giver, to help people. You know, to give of yourself, to share your encouragement, to share your ideas, to share your support, to share your compliments, because the more we give, the more we live. The more we give, the more we receive, and things begin to flow in our lives. Every single one of us wants a better life. Every one of us is here to express the glory of God. And the only thing stopping us is our own self-sabotaging it by not having a more masterful relationship with uncertainty and our desires. Instead of getting scared of uncertainty, why not get excited? Why not get joyful? Why not get curious? Why not realize God means this for good and create a space for God's grace and serendipity? And then also with your desire, don't think that you want. You know, don't let it be a fearful thing of not having. You know, realize that you can stay calm and your desire will be responded to. Celebrate the good that's in your life. Believe that you've received it and be a good giver and let it flow in your life. You know, somebody once said, life is a banquet, but too many people are starving to death. It is life. There's an abundance out there, folks, for all of us. We are meant to express the glory of God, but let's not sabotage it and undermining by withholding or not allowing ourselves to practice these principles. You know, let's make a decision to have a more masterful relationship with these things and truly fulfill our mission of expressing the glory of God. God bless you all.